Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today. We have Emily Roback here from Yale University. She will be presenting on the topic of how Yale University launched a new event space in just 4 weeks and how you can too. With that, I will turn it over to Emily.
Hi, thank you, Kelly. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to join us. My name is Emily Roback, and my current role is I am the Assistant Director of Venues for Yale Conferences and Events, which is a department as a part of Yale University here in New Haven, Connecticut. So I've been at Yale personally for 10 years, and I've been with Yale Conferences and Events for over 7. And in my time with Yale Conferences and Events, my primary role has been focusing on operations and management of our exclusive conference venues on Yale's campus. And if anybody attended the UVAMC 2024, you may remember that I co-presented with my colleague Lily Malone. Lily handled all things marketing, inquiries, things like that. Lily has since moved on from Yale, so I will be speaking to her pieces as well and how they relate kind of holistically to opening up a new event venue on campus. So really quickly, I'm just going to go through the learning objectives as kind of a framework for what the next, half hour, 45 minutes is going to hold for us. Um, so after this session, you hopefully will be able to create an opening timeline for any new and renovated spaces that you take over, utilize your existing technology and processes to be able to scale your events and your business across multiple spaces, create processes and procedures for guests, clients, vendors, and yourselves, and create a marketing and signage program for your new and or renovated spaces. So I'd like to take some time together just to walk you through this case study in opening a new event venue on campus, which was done on a very short timeline, and some of my lessons learned and our department's lessons learned. So in 2023, Yale opened a new event space. It was at the top of a 1960s mid-century modern building. The building was formerly known as the Kline Biology Tower. And Yale had gone through years of design and construction and thinking about what this space was going to look like academically. But there wasn't really a plan for this beautiful event space that they had conceptualized on the top floor. So in July of 2023, Yale Conferences and Events was approached based on our current track record of running successful venues on Yale's campus to open and operate the new 14th floor of Kline Tower. Just to kind of set the framework for the background of Yale Conferences and Events, we are a department that's a part of Yale University. Prior to 2017, Yale Conferences and Events was operating on campus with no exclusive venues to operate events in. So we were primarily managing events in classroom spaces and other spaces on campus that we didn't have the ownership of. And then in 2017, when I joined the department, we were given the opportunity to take on a building called the Greenberg Conference Center, which is where I'm speaking to you from now. And that was initially built in 2009. It was built as a conference center to host international events. So there's translation booths and translation capabilities. It was modeled after the United Nations, some of their conference rooms. And so due to the decline of international events and kind of the increased interest to turn the space into a revenue generating building, we were asked in 2017 to take over management of the operations of the space. In 5 years from when Yale Conferences and Events took it over, we increased the number of events by 220%. We implemented Salesforce as our CRM system and our project management platform. And we very quickly became the go-to resource on campus for operations for on-campus venues and not just events. And then the types of events that we are primarily hosting in these spaces, again, just to kind of set some framework, are primarily academic conferences, retreats, receptions, dinners, things like that. We really don't do a lot of social events here in our venues, and we really like to do events that align with the university's mission. So the university asked Yale University, the university approached YC&E with questions in June of how we run kind of existing conference spaces on campus. And we had discovered that the university had already committed to at least 6 events in their new space that hadn't opened yet. But there wasn't really a functional plan for running the space that they had conceptualized. And they asked if we would be interested in the opportunity to kind of look at and provide feedback on how they would execute the event. One kind of motto I think that our department has and that we do really well at is, say yes first and then figure it out later. We had never launched a new space. We had taken ownership of existing spaces. But we really saw the opportunity and the impact that this space would have for our department, as well as the university as a whole. And we really knew that we wanted to be part of that special project. They were considering additional departments, including but not limited to Yale Hospitality, which is Yale's arm of dining and catering. And then they were thinking about relinquishing the control to individual departments within the building, which you'll see in a couple slides. So again, we really quickly realized the impact that this space would have on the university, as well as our current portfolio. And so we put together a comprehensive proposal to fully manage the space. This was submitted on July 22nd, and on July 24th, this was approved by the Office of the Provost for us to kind of hit the ground running and getting ready to go. So here are some photos of the newly renovated event space in different setups. And then later on in the presentation, I'll kind of walk you through the event space using one of our sales tools, which is our virtual tour platform. So as you can see, there are multiple rooms with multiple setups for the space. And these really need to be managed by an entity with operational knowledge. So individual departments or kind of academic departments wouldn't really have the knowledge to be able to operate multiple events in a dedicated event space such as this. And then here is a copy of some of the opening materials with a diagram of the building. So as you can see, all of these spaces are academic departments. And then on the top floor where it says we are here, this is the event space, which is dedicated to doing events for both departments in the building and external events at the university. And then here's an external look at the space as well. It is the tallest building on Yale's campus. So you can see it here. These double windows here are the event space. And it offers 360-degree views of all of campus, including Long Island Sound to the south, and then Sleeping Giant Mountain to the northwest. And then again, these are a copy of some of the promotional materials. As you can see, September 22nd is when we celebrated the reopening, and we were given the space at the end of July. So we developed some sample timelines to submit to campus administration of what an ideal timeline would look like for opening a conference and event space on a university campus would look like. So as you can see, this ideal timeline is 4+ years of planning for dedicated event spaces, design consultation, AV, making sure we're having quarterly meetings with, stakeholders and developing staffing plans and creating positions, really focusing on what the furniture is going to look like, what the floor plans are going to look like, some marketing, drumming up some interest for inquiries 6 months out, doing vendor orientation 3 months out so we can get feedback and select preferred vendors, doing some final purchases, being able to do some test events and test setups in the space. And then really dedicating a full all-staff to be on hand for opening. So this is the ideal timeline that we would have preferred and that we now recommend, which is over a 4-year timeline. In our scenario, 4 years turned into 4 months. And so I kind of broke it down here to see kind of what we looked at over that kind of 4-month opportunity. 4 months out, we had our first kind of hard hat tour and introduction to what this space is and what it could be. 3 months out, we were exploring additional staff, looking to see if our technology could support it, seeing if this would be something that would be a viable option for our department. 2 months out, we started doing a little bit of marketing, looking at what the inquiries were, kind of looking at the floor plans, capacities, things like that. On 1 month out, we did a very quick vendor orientation, furniture inventory. We quickly created some guidelines for using the space. And then when we opened with our existing staff. So we kind of all pivoted to new positions within the new space, and then looked at filling those positions later after we had been up and running. And here's just a quick look at our org chart for the department when we opened Kline 14. So we did kind of make do with our existing department operating as it is with adding the additional venues. We did advocate to add additional staff members to our venue team to support our current events in our venues, as well as our expanded role in adding a new facility, which you'll see on the next slide. We added a full-time audiovisual manager, so this person supports all of our venues in addition to a temporary venue operations coordinator, which we were able to get approved as additional headcount last fiscal year, and we transitioned them to full-time. We also added Lily's position, which was an additional position to support inquiries, because we were now receiving several more inquiries for not only events on campus, not in our venues, but also specifically venue rental events in our venues. So unlike our other venue, as I previously spoke about, the Kline Tower building was built primarily as an academic building with an event space at the top level. This is very different than, dedicated conference spaces, because there's multiple stakeholders involved in the space, which I'm sure some of my higher ed colleagues on this call can agree with. The stakeholders include faculty, students, postgrads, administration, just some competing priorities of, the best use of the space, who should be in the space, when the space should be occupied. So one kind of concession that we developed was that we provided to the faculty these dedicated faculty hours in an effort to make the space seem like it was open and all to anybody that was in that specific building. So the faculty hours are Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 9 to 1, and this is when it's allowable. So people can come up to the 14th floor event space, they can eat their lunch, they can host small department meetings, they can kind of take a walk around. But when there are events booked in that space, we do have signage that says this is a private event and the space is closed. Additionally, we look at our venues as an opportunity to offer 2 levels of service. So we have what we call rental only, which is where the client can book the space through us and we provide tables, chairs, linens, and audio visual. And when they book that way, then only the rental fees apply for the space. We also offer a level of service called full service event management, which is when Yale Conferences and Events provides a dedicated event planner to plan all aspects of the event, including setup, linens, audiovisual, print, registration, name badge, florals, catering, full service event planning. And that is a fee-based service that we provide as an add-on to renting the facility. So I just wanted to kind of provide some operational checklists and guidelines that we had to create really within 2 weeks of being in the space. We do continue to kind of revisit these guidelines on a quarterly basis now that we're open to better understand in practice how the space is being used now. We did create an approved vendor list. We simplified this list so it's actually the same between all of our venues. And so any of our approved caterers can access any of our venues. They're trained on the spaces, they're trained on all the kitchen equipment, and they have individual access to the space on their Yale ID cards. And that really helps us with not having to provide staffing both at the time of caterer arrival and caterer departure. We also provide some kitchen guidelines. So caterers are required for cleaning the kitchen and for properly using the equipment in the kitchen spaces. And then the loading dock instructions, this was a little bit of a complicated thing when we opened Kline 14 because due to it being an academic building with an event space on the top floor, there's really strict loading dock guidelines. And this is so academic activities are not interrupted. There's large deliveries of our loading dock where we're loading in food and tables and chairs. There's also research deliveries and specimens coming through into this academic building. So the loading dock collaboration is really requires a lot of work between all of our teams to ensure smooth arrival and departure times for events. The audiovisual guidelines, so this is really an ongoing conversation in the space, but we made the decision that we wanted to be the ones that were operating the AV exclusively in the space and requiring an on-site AV tech because of the level of service that we're offering and the equipment ownership in the space. And so we continue to kind of reevaluate what that AV looks like and who's kind of touching it and operating it and things like that. I can say that if we were to go back, we would have asked for some different AV in the different spaces based on how it's being used now, which really lends itself to that conversation of wanting to be involved from an end user and event planner side earlier on in the process. One of the biggest challenges with the space when we were looking at operational checklists was determining who was going to be setting up and breaking down the space in addition to cleaning the space. So Yale University has a very strong union, and we were advised by Yale facilities that the setup and the breakdown of the space was out of the scope of that union contract. And so we contracted with a separate vendor to manage all setups and breakdown of furniture only. However, this person cannot clean the space as that will be done by Yale facilities. So, our relationship between contractor, client, us, and Yale facilities really continues to evolve as we operate through the events. But I think we can proudly say that the model that we've created at Kline 14 has really kind of shifted to other departments at the university as more and more events are happening in spaces. And then lastly, when we overtook the space, we kind of got a lot of furniture and a lot of manuals and a lot of, basic architectural floor plans. And our team took all of this and created really detailed inventory sheets, floor plans with different capacities, maximum capacity based on standard floor plans, and setup guidelines for the space. This was a very big challenge for us because we were not really provided with any capacities, including furniture prior to opening. And so we spent a lot of time setting up, breaking down, moving things around, taking pictures, and using our experience in other venues to be able to provide what we needed to in that space. So now that we've discussed operations timeline and opening logistics, we can kind of shift to the branding and marketing side of things. So something that's really important to Yale Conferences and Events and our brand strategy is that we really want to position ourselves as the thought leader in higher education event planning. And another key component that we had to consider when designing a marketing strategy for Kline 14 was Yale's pre-existing university voice and brand guidelines for the university that's been around for a very long time. Another really interesting point is that when we were given the space didn't have a name. It was just the 14th floor. And so given our brand strategy, we really had full autonomy to name the space that we saw fit. And we decided on Kline 14, which is really simple for logos and for marketing. With these factors in mind, we designed the venue logo that you see here, and the goal was to create something modern that showcased our creativity while still staying within Yale's brand guidelines, which does restrict us to certain colors and fonts and, basic design. It's also very important for us as we're putting out these logos to have managed by Yale Conferences and Events, because our department does so many different facets at the university: summer programming, academic year events, conferences, venue management. We really wanted our brand to be consistent and recognizable through the logos that we were creating. Here's an example of some of the promotional materials that were created and shared within the Yale community. We did host an open house when we first opened to, get to know the staff and the faculty that were in Kline Tower, to show them the space, to get to meet them. And we kind of took this brand strategy that you'll see on some of these invitations and, carried it through a lot of our other promotional materials. It was also really great for us to do this because we really weren't familiar with the academic side of things. And so this kind of started to create that relationship with the people in the building, because we knew we were going to be relying on them and really working closely with them with competing priorities as well. So consistently branded signage is really an important factor that can really elevate the space. We did not want taped signs, temporary signage, things like that, especially in such a high-end event space. And so this was a really big priority to us from the beginning, and making sure that we had all of our branding, all of our marketing down when we opened, so it would be recognizable and then it wouldn't feel temporary, even though we were opening the space at such a quick pace. So as you can see here, we also created custom QR codes to link to important venue policies and guidelines. This was important to show accessibility to all the stakeholders, including students, faculty, and staff. We have these around the space. We have them in different parts of the building so that people can easily scan, look, see when faculty hours are, and things like that. And again, you can see that consistent branding throughout so that everybody can recognize that this is the 14th floor event space and this is the branding. And so we use this to be able to widely cast our policies. And this also helped us, spread that YC&E was managing the space. It was different than any other space in the building, but it did provide information to people in a very accessible way. So kind of shifting a little bit to our inquiry management after we had kind of done all the operational things, we had done the marketing, and we were really open for business. We had to turn our attention to managing this influx of inquiries that were coming in. And by using our pre-existing processes, which we'll discuss more in a minute, we were really able to offer a very smooth booking process to potential clients. So in the first 6 months of opening, we received 20 to 30 inquiries a week, which were all directed to one online form through Salesforce. Our responses are tied directly to each lead, so our whole team can view the correspondence, which was really helpful because we were operating with our existing staffing, and so everybody was really pitching in, responding to inquiries, helping everybody out. So being able to track that all within one CRM system was super helpful for us. We use response templates, and we really rely heavily on our venue calendar to determine availability, staff bandwidth, things like that, and just to keep consistent communication and the same voice when communicating out to potential clients. A huge benefit to the university for Yale Conferences and Events to take over the space was that we already had the existing software technology in place for supporting our other venues on campus. which really helped us to be able to scale up very quickly and not having to create a new system and managing a new space from the ground up. So looking at our existing software and technology that we had, Salesforce is really the life force of our venues. It drives everything from our inquiries, our contracting, our day of event details, and all of our customer information is in there. We also already had an existing account for When I Work, which was an existing software that we were already using for our summer staff scheduling, that we were able to then pivot very quickly and use that for operating in multiple venues. And then social tables, which we use for diagramming, not only in our venues, but also all across campus. So we could share within departments and we could quickly get all of the Kline spaces added in there and be able to create really digestible floor plans for people to be able to see that weren't the architectural floor plans or the conceptualized floor plans. We also could get all of our furniture inventory in there pretty quickly. So that was really important when looking at maximum capacities and playing around in the space before it was actually finished. So this is just an example of what our leads look like. All of our leads are collected through our inquiry form and they show up in our Salesforce. We do meet twice a week to review all of our team leads with the goal of responding within 3 business days to every lead that comes in. We do try and capture the most important information about the event, sponsoring department, event date and time, number of people, any event needs, what venue they're interested in, and how we can better help them. This is really helpful for us too, because if somebody reaches out about Kline, but they're actually a better fit for one of our other venues, we're able to retain the business and kind of shift them around at the university rather than just receiving inquiries for individual locations. And then one of the big ways that we're able to kind of stay organized and ensure that we're not double booking, or on the flip side, underutilizing the space, is by using our Salesforce calendar function. So prior to Yale Conferences and Events taking over the managed venues in 2017, all of the spaces that were being managed were being booked on an Outlook calendar, and all of the details were being captured within the Outlook calendar meeting. Which just gives me shivers now to think about how everything was kept straight. But utilizing our existing technology, this calendar allows us to really have a holistic view of everything that's taking place in our venues, set up dates, tentative holds, confirmed events, who is doing what event to make sure our staff bandwidth is distributed appropriately. And so this is really up on my screen all day, every day, as I kind of track what's happening in our spaces. So just kind of shifting to our existing technology, When I Work a little bit, we quickly realized that once we were managing multiple spaces through kind of some scheduling errors and a lot of frustration, that we really needed a system to keep all of our staffing organized between all of the multiple campus locations. So tapping into our existing When I Work account that we were already using for summer conferences scheduling, we were really able to be more detailed in our scheduling across multiple locations and multiple events. This helped us save on overtime. We did not have to pay anything additional to utilize this software. And from a staffing perspective, it allowed us to enter more details to the staff assigned so that we weren't repeating ourselves over and over or feeling like only one person knew all of the details for the events. And then as I discussed, a major tool that we utilize within our team is social tables. And so some of you may be familiar with this. It's a floor plan system that has been adapted by the majority of the university here at Yale. And so social tables really allows for full collaboration across departments all on the same platform. And Yale does have a CVent team that kind of supports us on site. We're able to load in some of the custom floor plans. We can share these within, our development department or the president's office or somebody else who may need to input their guest lists and things like that. So we're really happy with the scalability of social tables and the fact that the university has pretty much adapted it across the board. So I'd really like to take this opportunity. You just have to give me some grace because I'm gonna have to switch my screens here. But we have utilized a new software for our virtual tours. And this has really helped us immensely from the virtual tour side because the space was so new. Everybody wanted to get up there and see it. Everybody wanted to feel what the space was going to be like. And we found ourselves doing multiple site tours, which was starting to burn our staff out because we had opened with a more limited staff. So we did some research into some of these virtual tours, and we've implemented this at all of our venues now. Really, step one is that we send these virtual tours to people to be able to walk through, and then obviously we will always follow up once they book the event with a site tour of the space to walk them through. But this has helped us be able to talk to the clients about the space without actually physically having to be there and dedicating staff to that. So let's see. Can you see it?
Yep.
Yay! Okay, so as you can see here, we are in the elevator lobby. And you can just walk through the spaces here. The great thing that we really like about this system as well is that we can change the setups so that you're able to see what it looks like in rounds, theater style, reception style, and then also just like walk you through all of the different spaces that are in the 14th floor. You also really feel like you can experience kind of the view, the windows, things like that. And then something that's really great as well is you can submit an inquiry directly here. So it takes you right to our inquiry form, and then people can fill out an inquiry directly from this website. This has a lot of capabilities that we've been very happy with. We can continue to make updates. This is our kind of seminar side that you can see can be set more classroom, or we can change it to more of a reception style as well. I'll just walk through here. So oftentimes we'll use this for reception. We'll do a formal dinner on the other side, but really having that blank canvas and that kind of flexible meeting space is super important. Okay, now you're back to my presentation, right?
Yeah.
Yay, awesome. So as always, we did have some funny kind of unexpected moments along the way. Here is a photo of Freddie the Falcon. He is a protected peregrine falcon at Yale who has his own personal nesting box installed. His presence at Kline 14 right outside our windows is beautiful, but something that I learned is that these types of falcon hunt for sport. And so oftentimes, right before really big events, we'll find some little bird presence carcasses left for us to discover. And so that's just been something that I think that nobody, has been anticipating as you open a new space. Also, as you can imagine, Yale students can be quite ingenious when it comes to designing things, especially in a building dedicated to science. And so we have frequently found different contraptions to prop open our doors to allow for students and undergrads to access the space after hours. And so this is an example of magnets and an eraser that were super glued to fill perfectly into the door strikes. And so we've had to add this to our walkarounds to make sure that nothing is stopping the doors from closing. And then when Kline opened, there was still a lot of construction activity around the space. Still consistently, there's a lot of activity and development up on that side of campus. And we were hosting a very high level ranking official from the FBI for a seminar. And in the middle of the keynote, there was banging on the roof and there was construction workers dropping from the roof into scaffolding. And even though we had communicated his visit, that information did not get communicated to additional stakeholders. And so we thought the building was under siege for a couple minutes. But all of these things kind of go into play with, the unexpected. When you're opening a new space, you just can plan as much as you can, but these things are always going to pop up. So as we reflect upon opening the space, what would we have done differently and what do we want to do differently for the future? So um, I would say that I feel strongly about advocating for conferences and events departments earlier when new spaces, especially dedicated event spaces, are being opened as part of construction projects on campus. Oftentimes it's, administration, meeting with the architects, and things really get down the road quickly. And if the space is going to have any semblance of a conference and event space, really somebody that's an expert in that field needs to be at that table. And I think you need to provide the why, like use some examples of why that might not work in a conferences and event setting and what you would do differently as the expert and why some of these event professionals and end users need to be a part of these conceptual designs. Um, our goal here at Yale Conferences and Events is to put together some really detailed operational manuals that we can provide to architects and consultants when opening these new spaces at Yale so that our name and our department is represented at that table even before it gets down the process. Also, when you're looking at providing these operational guidelines and checklists, think about what you're currently doing and how you can scale that business when the opportunity arises. So prior to 2017, Yale University Conferences and Events, we weren't managing any spaces, but we accepted the challenge, we rose to it, and we created ways to be able to scale very quickly without having to add additional headcount or add additional resources in a way that would impact the bottom line of the university. And then really investing in software, as I kind of alluded to, that doesn't limit you to a specific location, like a student center. Make sure that when you're looking at your software, your booking and your event software, that you can add different features, you can add different locations, it's very customizable, so you can scale it quickly. If you limit yourself to just what you're currently doing, without any other way to expand, you're not going to be able to really flip and be able to take on these new opportunities as quickly as you'd like to. So based on everything that we kind of learned through this opening process, this is really our kind of top 5 considerations that campus planners should take into account when opening a new venue or renovating an existing venue. So these kind of top 5 considerations, we feel strongly after reflecting upon our process that these should be thought of at the time of conceptualizing rather than implementation. So even though all of the details of all of these little things might not be finalized, really advocating for these important event management and event operation details will just make everybody's lives easier when the space opens on campus. And I do think this is a unique thing specifically to higher education sometimes, because oftentimes there's so many different stakeholders and competing priorities that people don't even think administration or whoever is kind of conceptualizing these facilities projects don't even think to tap in a conference and events professional. So again, really the top 5 is staffing and personnel. What's your staffing going to look like? How are you going to have these meetings leading up to the event space opening? Where's your staff going to work out of the space when it opens? Is there a dedicated space for your staff to be during events and management of events? Software and technology, we talked about that a lot. So what's your floor plan system? How can you take inquiries? Where are you going to keep all of your event details? Parking and accessibility. Where are people going to park? When you open a big, beautiful venue, the first question is going to be, where are my guests parking? Where can shuttles drop off that are coming for large conferences? What's the accessibility plan? Are there elevators? How are people going to be getting in and out? What's the loading dock look like? We talked about that a lot. Our loading dock just changed. Because of construction to a different loading dock, we're kind of having to communicate that all the time because we're in the middle of the city and because it's construction and because we're competing with academic priorities. Logistics and setup. What are your final capacities and what's your capacity goal? What's the longevity of the furniture? We got a lot of soft woods that we've had to replace. Our chairs were not appropriate for the space that we were going to be doing the types of events we've had to replace them. Is the furniture movable? Is it fixed? How can we make sure that the end user is getting what they want when it's conceptualized 10 years in advance? And then lastly, audiovisual and power. Oftentimes, again, this isn't really thought of when they're first thinking about an event space, but do you want there to be hybrid capabilities in this world? Hybrid is asked for all the time. How many microphone channels are you going to have in the spaces? What are your lighting schemes? Can you do conference in the day and then reception at night? What are your power requirements? How much are you plugging in? Are you putting in floor pockets for chargers and things like that? So these are kind of our top 5 hot button items that really need to be thought about at the beginning rather than backfilled at the end. And I think that's it. I just went through this presentation. Again, I did present back in last fall. And so it was really good to kind of go through and refresh myself, but I'm open to any questions or comments or feedback. And here's my contact information if you want to connect more.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emily. That was a very thorough and very useful, I'm sure, to many of our attendees today. Um, we will open it up for questions right now. We do have a few in the queue, and I'll get to those in just a moment. But first, I want to say that I'm going to open up a survey for people attending this webinar right now to take, just so unique venues can gain feedback to guide future webinars that we host. So you'll be seeing that on your screen right now. Um, so if you don't mind taking that. But I will jump into the first question that we have here. This person said, can you share your service options and rates for the event services option?
Yeah, so our department operates, we are a revenue generating department. So how we handle full service events is we're a one-stop shop. We give people one final bill at the end of their event here. We pay all of the internal and external service providers, and then we charge a percentage conference management fee on top of all of the pass-throughs. So the percentage is really based on the type of event. And Christine, I'm happy to chat with you a little bit more offline if you have any questions about kind of specifically what we offer or how we structure that.
And then one other question here, what platform do you use to create the custom QR codes?
That's a very good marketing question that I don't have the answer to off the top of my head, but I'm happy to follow up with that information once I review with our marketing team. But we utilize them both for our venues, and we do utilize them a lot for our events. We do a custom QR code on the back of the name badges that links to agendas. We put them on signage, and so we're really happy with creating those and the accessibility they offer. And I will be sure to follow up with that information when I receive that.
Okay, great. We will hang on for just a few minutes in case anyone else has any questions. I see people are filling out the survey, so thank you for that. But yeah, Emily, overall, this was a really great presentation. I do appreciate it. I see someone raise their hand. If you had a question, could you write it in the chat or the Q&A box? But yeah, Emily, this is really helpful, very informative. I definitely learned a lot.
Absolutely. And again, here's my contact information. I love our venues. I love working at the university, and I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody wants to contact me afterwards. And hoping I see everybody in November at the conference.
Awesome. Well, it looks like there are no other questions, so we can go ahead and end right here. Thank you everyone for attending. I really appreciate your time, and Emily, thank you for presenting today. This was really great.
Thank you.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye.